Welcome. We're here today to talk to Brian Gibbons from the rent2ownguys.com. Brian here has over 30 years experience helping people get financed in homes in great school districts, even if they have credit problems in the past, or dealing with issues like being self-employed or even having too much student loan debt. Now, Brian's going to explain how his system works and how people can get free information. So Brian, welcome. Glad to have you.
Jen, it's a pleasure to be here.
All right, so tell us how this works, because this seems really exciting and interesting. How does it work?
Well, let's just talk about the problem, then we'll talk about the solution.
That sounds great.
How's that? Right now, it's never been more difficult to either get an FHA loan or a conforming loan. Now, the definition of a conforming loan is not FHA. Okay? FHA does most of the mortgages right now.
Okay.
They've tightened up credit.
For sure they have.
You know, right now, it's so hard to get a mortgage. And with this recession, nobody's got perfect credit.
Yeah.
I mean, nobody. I mean, there are people that had really high FICO scores and just in 2 years have lost 100 to 150 points on their FICO score. We deal with people that have challenges getting a mortgage, but they've got strong income. They've got a good amount of money to put down on the house. And we're going to explain how our procedure with this talk, how it works. But the bottom line here is if you've got great income and you can put money down on a house, chances are very good that we can help you.
Right. Is this a good time to buy a house?
Well, let's talk a little bit. Has it hit bottom? Have you seen any signs in the Wall Street Journal or USA Today or any of your papers? Has it hit bottom? You know what? I think it really has. So, should you buy at the bottom or the top? What do you think?
Well, I mean, I would say I would buy it closer to the bottom, you know, while it's on the rise, maybe.
That's the best time to buy.
Oh.
Buy low, sell high.
All right, so if, you know, rent to own. So I hear, I just want to own. What is rent to own? Explain what that process is.
Okay.
Because I think, I don't know, that may be scary to some people, rent, but maybe not.
Well, let's think a little bit about, I'll give you a profile of our perfect client, okay? A lot of our clients have rented for well over 10 years. Now, when you think about it, have you made that landlord rich with nothing to show for it? A lot of our clients have spent a lot of money in rent. Let's say $2,000 a month times 12 months. 2 times 12 is 24. That's $24,000 for only 1 year.
And nothing, that you're not gaining anything.
And then multiply that times 10. 24,000 times 10. That's $250,000 that you have thrown away in rent for nothing to show for it. Now, owning, you know, if you buy at the right time, that could be a big piece of your retirement plan, you know, the equity in your house. But you got to buy at the right time. We have houses right now that are beautiful, that sellers want to help the buyer buy it. Their motivation is maybe they bought at the top of the market and they want to help a buyer buy it. The bottom line here is we want you to get a fair price for the house. We don't want you to overpay for the house. We want you to get, you know, whatever the appraisal is your cost for the house. That's the first thing.
That's great.
Now, how's the program work? Why is it beneficial to somebody that wants to stop renting and stop making a landlord rich?
Sure.
Because all you're doing is paying down his mortgage. Okay. So the step one is you need to get pre-qualified through us. And I will say this, not everybody does get qualified. We want to pull your credit report and take a look at it. We want to see what the problems really are. Now, don't be embarrassed about where it is today. But I will say this, we are experts at holding your hand every single step of the way. We have experts that all they do is teach you how to get your FICO score up. That's their job.
That's real help, Brian.
Well, when you think about it, do you spend money at the gym to get your body in shape? I know women spend a lot of money at getting their hair and everything else beautiful, right?
Right.
Well, why not spend a little bit of money getting your credit in shape, getting your borrowability in shape? It's kind of a balance, isn't it?
It's a great idea.
You know?
Mm-hmm.
So we'll hold your hand all the way through, because we don't win until you buy the house. That's when we feel that we've finished our job. Okay? It's almost like, you know, financial planner would sit down with you and say, okay, you want an SBA loan? Well, let's try to put that package together, and that takes a while. You want to hit a retirement age, you want to stop working at 60, that takes some planning.
Sure.
You want to make sure the IRS doesn't take all your money away when you pass away and it goes to the kids. That takes some planning. It just doesn't happen. Well, it's the same thing here. We want to help you rebuild your FICO score. So we sit down and explain how we do that. We show you some sample cases, and so you get an understanding of, oh, that person in 24 months really had some major differences in their FICO score. Okay. Your job is going to be to focus on creating income, as much income as possible. We have some clients that are self-employed, and they're difficult to get mortgages. Now, some CPAs sit down with self-employed people and says, we're going to make sure you pay no taxes. Guess what? That doesn't help you get a mortgage.
Right.
You know? So you pay no taxes, but you can't buy a mortgage. You're stuck in renting. So we've got to talk to your CPA and say, we need to have a plan over the next 24 months to get your mortgage.
And, you know, when you hear mortgage, Brian, I mean, you know, my first thought is down payment.
Sure.
How do you address that?
Well, let's just keep it really simple. The more skin in the game you have, the easier it is to get the mortgage. It's like going, you want to go buy a Lexus, you know, and you want a really good rate. Well, you put 20% down, you're going to get a great rate.
Okay. And that takes planning.
You do a nothing down deal, you're going to probably not get the best rate. So it's kind of similar to that. So we always advise you to do is come to us with at least 3% of the purchase price. And we will start to work there. It may require 5%, but it's somewhere in there. Now, guess what? This money isn't at risk.
How do you mean?
Well, think about it. You don't want to throw this money away and not get the mortgage, right?
Yeah.
3% of 500,000 is a lot of money.
Right.
1% is 5,000, so that's $15,000 you're putting down on a $500,000 house. You don't want that at risk, do you?
Well, no, especially if you're coming in a place where you don't feel financially secure.
Well, you better feel secure with your job. If you feel secure with your job, then we'll entertain doing this. If we look at your job history and it's not, you don't think you're going to be there for the next 5 years, don't do this.
Yeah, that's helpful that you would actually say that. You know,
yeah.
That's wonderful.
Well, you have to also understand that we have to take care of our sellers too. You know, we want to make sure that they get their house sold because they're helping you buy it.
Sure.
So we've got to really have an understanding of where you're going to be over the next 5 years. If it's going to be in that house, then we're going to help you on a rent-to-own basis. And here are just some basic benefits for you. We're going to help you with what we call a rent credit system,
Okay.
which is generally a gift that the seller gives you to help you get the mortgage. And it's a lot of money. Let's say if you're paying $2,000 a month, that's $400 a month. That gift is applied toward the purchase price.
Helpful.
Times 12.
Sure.
$4,800 a year for 2 years, almost $10,000 the seller is helping you get that mortgage. When's the last time somebody offered you a gift of $10,000?
Are you giving me $10,000 right now?
Can't have it, sorry. But we're going to credit it dollar for dollar towards your purchase price to help you get the mortgage.
Right, to help me acquire the American dream, a home. A home. All right, well, all right, so I'm going to play devil's advocate
Please
here
do.
just a little bit.
Please
What
do.
What kind of safeguards does rent-to-own guys have if these people don't obtain the mortgage?
That's a good question because you know what? I don't like a lot of the press that I'm reading, especially agents have these sites like Active Rain is one of them, a few sites out there, and a lot of agents are saying that rent-to-own is crap. doesn't work. Well, it does work.
You have experience, and you have proof that your success rate.
Oh yeah, yeah. But one of the problems with rent to own in the marketplace is people put unqualified people in the house that have no chance of getting the mortgage.
It's a setup.
So their success rate's terrible, and they just leave them to their own devices. From day one, we have somebody work with them to be able to increase their FICO score. And let me just give you a couple insights of how do we do that. You can dispute negative marks according to the federal law. If you go to ftc.gov, the Federal Trade Commission allows you to do certain things to improve your credit report.
Okay.
Okay.
Good to know.
Yeah. So go to ftc.gov. It's free information, and not rocket science. That's the first thing. But the innovative things that we do, we get new positive marks that report positive history in the first month you're with us. So that
already increases the score.
Yeah, it takes 6 months for seasoning to get some kind of benefit. But it takes a while, and it takes a strategy to do it properly.
And you know that strategy.
Well, sometimes it takes, if we have a real bad situation, we had one client who had to go through a medical bankruptcy. It's not a business bankruptcy, but a medical bankruptcy. His poor child had a huge number of medical bills. And that was like a while ago. It was like 3 or 4 years ago. And he wanted a mortgage, and he got denied, of course, because he had that bankruptcy on his credit report. So we helped him rebuild his credit history. And it took him 5 years to do it.
You got to be patient. This takes time.
The whole thing at the end of the day is if you want to be in good shape physically, you go to the gym. You want to be beautiful, you go to the beauty parlor. If you want a good FICO score, get a good coach. Get somebody that knows what they're doing.
Okay, that's great. Okay, so what about the homes online? Is there a place where I can see these homes that I'm looking to have a mortgage with, to rent, and then to own in the future?
It's a good question. We kind of have to play a balancing act with our sellers. A lot of our sellers say, we'll help the buyer buy it over time.
Okay.
But we don't want just anybody looking at our house, because we don't have a for sale sign outside. It's private. So what we will do is we'll first get you pre-qualified. And we'll let you know that this is what we feel, with all your income coming in and your other bills, this is what you can afford to pay for a payment. And then we will find houses for that, instead of you looking through all our inventory of homes. It doesn't do any good to do that. Get you pre-qualified first and say, these are the houses you can afford.
Well, that's reality. And
Isn't
you guys
it?
want to live in reality.
Oh,
because,
sure.
we all can look online, correct, and see these homes and think, well, of course we want to
Dream.
live in them, and this is my dream. And then in reality, it's not even something we would be able to afford.
No, we safeguard our sellers' privacy. And if you are pre-qualified, then we'll show you some photos of them and get you a feeling for, does this layout look good, that open plan for the kitchen and all, the bedrooms and all the rest of that other stuff. And generally, it takes us a good 8 weeks to get you into the proper home. We can't do any faster than that. And guess what? You have to give 4 weeks notice anyway.
Right. So what I hear you saying is that you actually know your clients. You have a you have a relationship with them, and then you're not gonna leave them high and dry. You're gonna handhold, and kind of walk them through that process and get them into that home, get them into that dream.
Let me tell you the number one scary question that we have for our buyers. They all say this eventually: what if I can't get the mortgage?
Right.
We've just had a new election. Is credit going to get tighter, where somebody that got qualified this year can't get qualified the next year? Is FHA going to loosen up credit?
It's a lot of uncertainty, Brian.
We don't know. But we do know that the bigger the down payment and the longer you're in that property, the easier it is to get the mortgage. Think about it. It's like, how much skin in the game do you have invested? I personally think that FHA at 3%, it's not enough skin in the game, because they can walk away from 3% of value, no problem. turn the keys into the bank. If you look at Canada, they require 20% down to be a homeowner. That's a lot of money.
Sure
Other
is.
countries, you know, it's a lot of money. So I anticipate perhaps if you're with us in FHA Changes, we'll just adapt to those changes. But you're never, ever going to lose out. The sellers that we work with have said, we'll help the buyer buy it as long as it takes. If it takes 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, 5
They're
years.
in for the long haul.
Yeah. Yeah. Because look at what they're getting. They're getting somebody that loves their house, and they're building up the ability to borrow the money over time.
And this person that's in the house is not just any old renter. They're renting because they want this home for themselves.
I'll tell you something, you know, it's very scary if you have a $500,000, $600,000, $700,000 house to have somebody rent it from you. Because the law gives you very little recourse if they hurt it, or even if you have to evict them.
Mm.
You have to go through the law. Did you realize one of the things that drives me crazy is you have a $500,000 asset, market rent's only $2,000, but it costs you, you know, $5,000 a month in a PITI payment, and the law doesn't require you to have a large security deposit. You can only charge 1 month.
That's shameful. Mm.
You can do 1 month's rent damage real easy.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's scary. That is scary for a homeowner.
Sure. Most of our homeowners don't want to rent it out to a regular renter because they don't want to clean it up and do it again. They don't want to deal with damage. They don't want to deal with an unproven tenant. They just don't want to do that.
Right, and that's why the rent-to-own guys are doing what you're doing. You're changing that.
Well, what we're doing is bringing value to both sides of the fence. And there's one other safeguard I want to talk about. And I hate to say this, you know, it never used to be this prevalent, but we've heard horror stories about sellers receiving money and not paying their mortgage. Mm. Isn't that ridiculous? That's insane.
People are desperate, I suppose.
You know, desperate times.
Sure, but...
You know how we safeguard it? We use a neutral third party. It's called a loan servicing company. It's been in business for over 25 years. And their job is to actually work more with commercial people that takes the money from the tenant, goes to this neutral third party, and they pay 3 bills. They pay the bank payment, they pay the tax payment, and they pay the insurance payment, the PITI, it's called.
Right.
And if there's any balance, it goes to the seller. Now, let me tell you why it helps the tenant. They get a record every 12 months of all their prompt payments, which helps them get the mortgage. It also helps the seller to get accurate payments, how much income has come in, and where these payments have gone for their taxes, because they have to give it to their CPA.
Right.
Everybody wins with this, and it's very inexpensive, but it's a barrier that prevents the seller from being irresponsible.
That was my next question, but you just answered it.
Oh, I
is
did?
Is it fair to both sides?
Yeah.
And the answer is yes. I mean, you have set it up in a way that it is, and it's protective.
It's about as perfect as it can be.
Well,
It's like, is a marriage perfect? Well, we try. In this situation, the buyer is protected from the seller not doing their part. The seller is protected, and hopefully you will do your part. There will be inspections. There will be people checking up on you. Don't think that they're going to leave you alone.
Right.
You know, you've got to do maybe some minor maintenance to keep the house up. You might have to keep it tidy and make these payments on time to get your rent credit. Because it's not a gift that you automatically get. If you don't pay your rent, you don't get your rent credit. That $200 a month.
Right.
Or that $2,400 a year. It is only for the first year to help you get the mortgage generally, but sometimes it's for 2 years. It depends on the property.
And your clients typically want to be in this home. They want this home, and they're there.
Well, all I can tell you is these are executive homes. These are beautiful homes. There's nothing to do. There's no purple walls, maybe in the kids' room, but you know, it's all gorgeous. You know, top of the line. These are executive homes. These are like young doctors, dentists, high, you know, HR executives, whatever, human resource executives. And they want to be in that great school district right now.
That's very important. Very important. is the neighborhood, the community, the school district.
The crime level.
All of those things
The
weigh
safety
in on where
issue.
you're going to settle down. Mm-hmm.
We have a saying, we won't deal with any house that doesn't have in the top 3 school districts. That's the first thing. Second thing is, grandma should be able to walk down the street at 9 o'clock at night and not get harassed by anybody. Feel totally safe. That's what we look
Love
for.
that. Yeah, that's great.
So we don't, you know, if you are trying to sell your house, we may not pick that house because it's not for our kind of buyer.
Well, Brian, all of this sounds amazing. I mean, this sounds great, the rent2ownguys.com. Can you tell us what's the next step? I mean, how would someone right now be able to start the process with renting to own a home?
Okay. Well, first, you know, I want you to do your investigation as far as the best school district in your area. That's the first thing.
Okay.
Because that's what we do, you know, so chances are we'll be able to find you a house in that area, even if we don't have one. Because we write offers on houses all the time. So that's the first thing. Second thing is we need to know what your must-haves are. I gotta have 3 bedrooms.
We all have this.
I gotta have an open plan for kitchen.
Updated kitchen
all
or
that.
what, yes.
Right.
Right.
And we want to know your dream house. Okay, once we know that, then we need to know, you know, how much money's coming in, how much money's going out, and that's generally in person when we do that. Because we gotta see some documentation.
Sure, and it's to start that relationship and just build up that relationship, a foundation of a relationship between you and your client.
And generally what we'll do before the meeting, we will forward you a Privacy Act form that allows us to access your credit report.
Sure.
Because we're not going to do that without a signature.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. And then we'll sit down and go through your credit report with you. And we'll say, okay, see, this is what you're missing. Okay, and we'll give you a strategy of what our consultants will help you fix that and how much time it'll take and all that other stuff. And then it generally takes us 8 weeks to get the job done. And if you don't have access to 3% of the value of the house, so if you want a $300,000 house, you know, 1% of a $300,000 house is $3,000 times 3. If you don't have the $9,000, we can't generally work with you. So you may want to start to find a way to get 3% of the value of the house by talking to relatives and maybe borrowing some money, whatever it takes to get that little 3%.
Prior
together.
to contacting the rent2ownguys.com.
Well, I don't mind you contacting us, but you better have a short window, like within 90 days of finding that money. Because why go through all this if you can't deliver? Okay? And know that that money is applied directly, dollar for dollar, to the purchase price. You're not at loss for that.
Right, it's not just going out the window.
Exactly.
It's wonderful.
The other thing is you're not going to overpay for the house. We generally are very fair. The sellers know that when it's time to get the mortgage, we're going to have a new appraisal and see what that number is, and that's the sales price. How fair? Much fairer can you get than that? We can't do any better than that. Everybody wins.
That's wonderful. I mean, you've described a win-win situation here.
Oh, thanks.
So Brian, I just appreciate you joining me here today and just and educating us on Rent to Own Guys, the rent2ownguys.com. So please visit their site and just love your openness and willingness to help.
Well,
so
thanks.
refreshing in this time.
Well, if you are tired of renting, if you're tired of making a landlord rich, and you really have good income and you can put 3% down, give us a ring. Or just go to our site and say, we'd like to have we have a nice little appointment setter thing on our site. It's wonderful. Just set an appointment. We'll talk to you at no charge. We'll give you some free information for no charge. And worst case scenario, you will be well on your way to improving your credit.
Contact Brian Gibbons, thank you, rent2ownguys.com. Thanks again for being here, Brian.
Thank you. It's been great. Good luck.